Hello everybody and welcome to what I know is a very long overdue update video on my 1999 Ferrari 550 Maranello. My first Ferrari and one that I have really enjoyed over the last 18 months, having covered 10,000 miles, bringing the total now up to 102,000. Yep, this is a 100,000 mile Ferrari. That's quite remarkable in Ferrari land. As I got my 430, my second Ferrari, in the summer, I thought that was an ideal time to let the 550 go off and get a lot of things done that had been somewhat overdue. However, as is tradition with old Ferraris, things didn't go quite according to plan. This was always going to be quite a big job because there were a lot of things on the car that needed doing, and I wanted to get them all done in one big hit so the car would be better than ever and I could really enjoy it for the remainder of the year. So, in no particular order, the tyres were all shot. They weren't particularly bad, they weren't worn, but they were just old. They were Bridgestones, they were 2014s, and if it was anything other than bone dry, they were absolutely terrifying. Likewise, the brakes also needed sorting. I think I killed them when I took the car to Brands Hatch the first week that I had it. A lot of fun. Actually, no, that's not a lie. It was no fun whatsoever, and I cooked the brakes. We had previously tried to skim them to see if that would fix anything, but there was still a very pronounced wobble under braking. So that needed sorting. The car also needed a service. Now, when I got the car, there was really only one issue that was actually outstanding, which was a leaking rocker cover gasket. It was pointed out that were this left too long, it could also cause some other issues. For example, the oil could have gotten into the alternator, done some damage there, or various other places. However, this is an expensive job to do and best combined with your cam belt service. As that was more or less due on this car, I thought, right, let's do all of that. In fact, let's do the biggest service we possibly can. So with these, you've got three types of service. You've got annual, you've got biannual, which includes extra stuff like the gearbox fluid, and then you've got your cam belt service. So a big cam belt service is 1,700 quid, and it includes everything in an annual, but not a biannual. I decided to do the biannual on top, so we've serviced everything on here that you could think of. Oil filter, air filter, pollen filter, we've done brake fluid, we've done power steering fluid, we've done the gearbox fluid, we have done the lot, spark plugs, all sorts. So that was all done as well. I was already budgeting about £5,000 to £6,000 for all this work because it was going to be a pretty big job. And most stuff wasn't that bad. The biggest issue I had really was finding tyres. There are a few different tyres you can choose for this car, but it wears somewhat odd sizes. So at the front, it's 255 40/18s. Then at the back, it's 295, I believe. Yep, 35 18s. And finding a matching pair front and rear of a brand you actually like isn't as easy as it probably should be. You can get Bridgestones fairly easily, but I'm not in love with those. Same with Pirellis, but Michelin only had limited availability, and it took me about 2 months to get a complete set of Super Sports. PS4S do not exist in this size. So I got all the parts together, car went over to Meridian, and they got cracking. There were two other issues that needed sorting. First off, the aircon was no longer blowing cold air. In fact, it was blowing exclusively roasting hot air, and that's not good because these are warm at the best of times. And we had an intermittent running issue which had also been with the car since the day I got it. So every now and again it would just go into a sort of limp mode where it wouldn't make any power. This had been an on and off thing, and usually if you did turn the car off and back on again, it would sort it at least for a few hours, so I was never especially worried about it. We'd previously investigated and said the fuse board may be the culprit. However, just before I took it down to Meridian this time round, the car just locked itself into limp mode and wouldn't develop full power no matter what you did. So that obviously also needed sorting. Things actually got off to a pretty good start. Although finding the tyres had been tricky, they weren't that expensive, just over £700 for a set. With the brakes, we decided the only real solution was a replacement of all the discs and the pads, and again, that was not expensive. £1,500 all round for that. That's less than the price of one disc on my Scuderia. The air conditioning also not actually that expensive at all. It was simply one of the valves had failed and let all of the aircon gas out. So it cost me £200 for some new valves and a regas. That was problem solved. The running issue also seemed to go away when they actually undid the bypass to the fuse board they'd enacted last year. But we remained suspicious as to how long that would actually last. Naturally, we did bump into a couple of expected surprises. One of those was the oil pipe that goes from the sump on the car's dry sump tank to one of the radiators. That had corroded and we needed to replace both the pipe and the sump itself. The sump is actually quite cheap, about £70, but the pipe is expensive and no longer available from Ferrari, so we had to get one of those remade, and that cost about 600 quid. We also found a pipe down here split, which fed the brakes on this side of the car, perhaps partly responsible for my overheating issue at Brands Hatch, but that again, not expensive to fix at about 100 quid. So that was all getting sorted and done. Things were staying reasonably on budget, and Meridian had finally gotten to taking the rocker covers off so they could sort the gasket. That is when things went quite wrong. As soon as the rocker cover came off, Meridian saw why it was the car had been leaking quite so much oil. Unfortunately, my camshaft seals had failed. That is not good. However, that's also not actually that expensive to fix. The parts are only something like £40 each. But this was made very expensive by a few things. Firstly, we decided that because the camshaft seals on one side had failed, logic dictated that the other side was probably not far behind, and so they recommended doing both simultaneously. Of course, I agreed with that and thought it was a fairly reasonable idea. The real kicker is this piece here, officially the spark plug cover. Now, this has been bugging me for quite some time because it already looked untidy when I got the car. But the only place I can source a new one from is Maranello concessionaires, who have the license to sell official reproduction parts. However, as it includes new leads, not just the plastic cover, a new pair is £2,000. So in the interest of cash flow, we opted to replace that at a later date because it's fairly easy to do separately. I then decided, as we were doing all of that work, we were pulling the engine right apart, it would be worth getting it all tidied up cosmetically. I'd always been a little bit unhappy with the state of the intake manifold and the cam covers on the car. The paint was starting to flake off and it just didn't look as good as it really should have done. When you open the bonnet on a Ferrari, it should really wow you. So I said, look, is it a good time to do that? They said, yes, it's absolutely the best time to do it. It'll be cheaper to do it now than any other time, but it's still going to be about £2,500 to get the lot done. It's not actually because of the paint or anything like that. In fact, only about half of the bill was the paint. It's because taking these apart is a very, very labour-intensive process. And yeah, but because I've paid for this car, I thought it was something worth doing. It's mine now, I own it, I want to look after it, and that, to be honest, is in the realms of what you'd really call restoration rather than maintenance. I could have easily left all the paint flaking off. It wouldn't have affected the car in any real meaningful way, but it was something I wanted to do. When all the dust had settled, I was left with a bill for nearly £10,000. In fairness, that is not really Meridian's fault, because the big issue with this car was one that I'd inherited from the previous owner, and it's not really his fault either. He'd spent £17,000 on the car as well at an independent, and the car was almost certainly leaking at that time. They really should have fixed that issue and got on it, because it turns out that was quite a problem. However, c'est la vie, and this is one of the reasons that I waited until now before actually buying a Ferrari, because I was at least able to cope with the bill when it appeared. I know a lot of people think that I get preferential treatment at Ferrari or I get stuff done for free because of who I am. I wish I did pay for all the work on this car. No YouTuber gets their Ferrari serviced by Ferrari for free. That's just not how it works. However, the car did have one parting gift in it for me, because when I went down to go and collect it, I hopped in it and it went straight into limp mode right away. I was with my friend Jack from number 27, who'd kindly taken me down there to collect the car, and I tried to signal him because I was following him, and even my headlights weren't working properly. So I turned around straight back to Meridian. They were mortified, got right on it, and we realized that the fuse board had finally given up the ghost. Not only was that the cause of my intermittent running issue, it was also the cause of my headlights not working as well. All that happens really with these fuse boards, they are simply pieces of plastic with lots of copper circuitry and stuff on them. They get warm, the plastic expands, and that breaks all of the connections. They're fairly complicated. They're also an item that's no longer available from Ferrari. We'd also found that because of the oil leak, my aircon compressor was also now on borrowed time as oil had gotten into that. I was originally going to wait a few months before fixing it because it was going to need fixing, but I didn't want to spend any more money. However, as the car seemed to like it at Meridian, I said, right, let's get that sorted. Let's get the fuse board sorted, so I'll try and source one of those. And let's also start doing some other items that have been bugging me for a while. So for example, we did some cosmetic stuff. This little grille here was resprayed because it was looking a little bit tatty. And this grille down here at the front was painted silver when I got the car, but it should be black. And now it's in black. I think it actually looks really rather nice. The next time the car goes to Meridian, we're going to be doing some more cosmetic stuff as well, because the car is now really in what I consider the sort of restoration stage. Now we've done all the really big, heavy stuff on the car. It's driving nice. It looks fantastic. It feels better than it ever has done. And I am not happy to have spent the money, but I'm more at ease having done it because this is a car which is going to be with me indefinitely. It's not something that's on finance anymore. It's not something that's just going to go away in 18 months. Maybe it'll stay around for 6 weeks. Maybe it'll stay around for 6 years. Maybe it'll stay around forever. I really don't know. But I'm happy to be spending on it and keeping it going, keeping it in the condition I would like to think the car will be in if I was going to be buying it today. Sourcing a new fuse board cost me about £800. Fitting it I wasn't charged for because Meridian felt bad about the fact I'd gone all the way to pick up the car and it wasn't ready, so I didn't pay for that. However, I did pay to have the aircon compressor refurbished. That was about £600 to £800, which is a lot cheaper than the £4,000 and a bit Ferrari will want to charge you for a new one. This meant when the dust had actually settled, my bill on this car was just shy of £12,000. Yeah, that really hurt. However, I do console myself with the knowledge that an awful lot of what we've done won't have to be repeated for a very long time, if ever. So these tyres are going to probably last about 4 to 5 years because I expect they'll wear out naturally like the old ones did as well. The brakes, same again, they should be good for a number of years. The engine should look pretty for at least another decade. The next service on it will be a fairly minor one. Those pipes should last as long as the rest of the car. So all round, it's in currently spectacular condition. And the next step is going to be get it Classic A certified, which is a process I have now already begun. In order to get Classic A certification, the car has to be as original. Ordinarily, it wouldn't be the sort of thing that I would do with a car because I do like modifying them and I don't always believe that factory is best. However, with this particular car, it's so close to factory now and I enjoy it so much, I figured, why not? There are only 2 things that I need to change to get Classic A certification. I have to put the original head unit back in it, which I still have, and someone has deleted the center resonator on this car, so it's just 2 pieces of straight pipe. In fairness, it doesn't sound that great. It's quite boomy when you're driving it around, so fixing that I'm not worried about. I've sourced a center section, a used one, for the car. That's just cost me about £300. That should be all I need to actually get the Classic A certificate, and obviously that process will be detailed in another video. Beyond that, it's going to be mostly cosmetic work. Also, the car smells of fuel once again. When I first got it, every now and again you get this big whiff of unleaded in the cabin. After the premium program, that all sort of went away, so I assumed we had solved it. However, when I picked the car up recently, after a bit of driving, you could smell fuel again in the cabin. So we're going to have to investigate that and see if something else is going on, or maybe we've accidentally dislodged something. We're going to look into that too, but that's all going to be sorted. I'm not especially worried about it for now because the car did it for ages anyway. I've also got storage sorted with it with my storage partners Vintro, who've got a place just outside Ipswich, so the car will be there over the worst of winter. I did leave it outside last winter. I don't think that's the best thing to have done with the car. As I'm spending money getting it cosmetically better, I want it to be in warm, secure, dry, temperature controlled storage on charge, so when I do want to use it and enjoy it, the car will just be there and ready. So that really is it. The car is in excellent condition, driving well, icy cold aircon. They did a really good job of cleaning it. I've done a really bad job of cleaning it subsequently, so I apologise it doesn't look its absolute best, but there it is. Sorry it took a while to give you this update, but that is why it took quite a while. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.